So welcome to the session. This is the second session in the row that we were conducting for science, and today we will be talking about inquiry-based learning, fostering curiosity in kids. And I'm your host, Surbhi Arora, and we'll start with certain set of questions, and we have kept this session limited to the scope of grade 1 to 8 students. Any kind of questions you have, queries you have, I would like you to please post your replies or queries in the chat section. In case you want to give a defined question, then there is a Q&A section also where you can post your question and I will pick up that question by end of the session. So once again, welcome. Now on the next screen that I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you an image specifically, and then I have kept certain questions for all of you. And I want you to try and attempt those questions and give me your replies. So I hope we are ready and let's begin with this inquiry-based session today. So the first question says like, what comes in your mind when you look at the below image? I have kept an image for you. I just want you to look at it and just let me know what exactly comes in your mind as soon as you're looking at it. So somebody states of matter, glass full of water, transparent glass. Okay. So we have universal solvent, cold water, a glass of water. Okay. Chilled, fine. Condensation, liquid. So we all are looking at the same image, but then we all are making statements which are slightly different to each other, but we can kind of collect all the answers. So somebody is a transparent material glass with liquid, very specific. And now we have a good one, glass full of knowledge. Okay, so we see water droplets. So there are all kinds of answers which are coming in. Let's see again, and there's the same image, but I've changed your question now. So I want you to read this question and tell me, what are the questions you would like to explain the phenomena? So I want you to think about the questions and not the answers. What are the questions which you would like to ask in order to come to or deduce an answer towards the phenomena? What is the process of condensation? What is states of matter? Just the questions, no statements. What can you see in the given picture? Krishna is smart. What is the composition? How much is the glass filled? What are the water droplets come from? Okay. What was the temperature? Why can't you see clear image on the other side? Okay. From where the droplets came, which matter is in glass? Can you measure the liquid? So we can see while we are trying to attempt to look at the image and figure out, before you explain the phenomena, it makes more sense that we actually start asking some set of questions. Okay, is this glass full or is it hot water? Is it cold water? Or did someone drop the water on the glass? Anything that is coming in our mind, we can just come and talk about it. What if a pencil is kept inside? Now we are going more towards the physics section of the same query. Okay, that's a good one. So we were able to deduce a lot of questions to kind of start talking about the glass of water, which is a very simple thing that we could have. Volume is also somebody has written. Define the picture, is it warm? Now, then comes the question. So for instance, if you have passed a statement that did someone drop the water droplets on the glass, then you are asking me a question about the presence of water droplets. Now, if somebody says no, somebody has not done it, then you are trying to answer your own question. So I want you to try to attempt your own answer for the question you have asked. Okay, Manas is giving me one more question. Okay, Shweta is answering back on cooling gases changing into droplets. Okay, Shweta. Just remember your question. I know you have randomly asked the questions. Pooja, you can actually give an answer here only. Refraction density medium. Okay. Water is very cold. Water is changing form. So somebody was talking about states of matter, if I'm correct, Rakhi, in your thing that you were saying earlier. Change of state of matter is again Urvashi is sharing with us. Okay. We can see due to the temperature in the room. So where I actually want you to take through all the statements and questions is that while we talk about inquiry-based queries or inquiry-based teaching, the most important part in any inquiry-based learning is to question everything. It's about asking questions and a lot of questions, and then again finding a reason towards an answer to your question. So most of the time, we give answers first to our kids and then tell them, okay, this is the phenomena. So it's all about asking a lot of questions. And that is what today's session is all about, to understand that how we can carefully and in a nice manner execute an inquiry-based learning session in the classroom, and how IBL can be an integral part of your teaching methodology. So today I'm going to focus upon that how in day-to-day activities or day-to-day teaching, IBL can be an important phenomena. So let's begin from there. Let's talk about what is inquiry-based learning. Inquiry-based science education is a form of science. I would just read it out word to word for you to understand. That gives the student the opportunity to explore a subject through one, hands-on activities, second, investigation, and third, posing of questions. The posing of question becomes the most important part in any IBL learning. And it is actually designed to reflect actual learning engagement of the student in the process of scientific inquiry. There are two kinds of words I think I would like you to remember more, which is about posing of questions, and second is scientific inquiry. And I will try to kind of combine both of them together, but out of IBL, this is something which you have to take back home. So somebody asks you later that what is inquiry-based learning, you should be very clear. It is about investigating a process through posing a lot of questions in a scientific inquiry method. That's all. That's how you can actually make it easy for you to remember. Yes, hypothesis is also an important part. Rizwana, you are very much correct over here. We will come to everything, Uzma, which is critical thinking, questioning. We will come to that part or that section pretty soon now. Now, let's go ahead and let's talk further about it. When we talk about the inquiry process, it is, so there are various ways we can actually define it. Now, there is a way of a vertical section we talk about, that inquiry. What exactly is an inquiry? You're talking about predicting something. You're talking about discovering. You're talking about questioning. You're talking about solving that area that we are talking about. So inquiry can be anything when we talk about. Inquiry is all about finding out. It's more about the curiosity that is related to it. So we try to predict, okay, do you think there can be life on Mars? Let's try to predict, what if there is life on Mars? So in order for life to survive, what all things would be there? Now, there are organisms which can survive with certain, anaerobic bacteria without oxygen. So maybe oxygen is not needed or it is there. So you kind of start inquiring in that manner and start asking those questions. They're predicting. Discovering, you go into the deeper process and you start researching about it. You try to find out things which are already there. Then you are questioning, a lot of questions. There cannot be a scientist without question. You have to question your own hypothesis and your own statement. Hi, Bhavani, I'm also in Hyderabad. So hi from Hyderabad, we are quite nearby. So there could be a lot of things, and ultimately solving the queries, where you can talk about that, okay, you have raised all those predictions and statements, and then now you are talking about solving the inquiry that has been raised. Now, this is one way to talk about inquiry. However, in our scientific thinking, there was a word I told you specifically that you have to make a note of, which is about the scientific thinking or the scientific inquiry process, which I will show you now. This is a chart that I want to discuss in a better way with you. Now, it's a loop. It's a circular loop which can continue going. But how do we start the loop? We will start preferably from this section, which is of the loop. That is ask. So the first step that I would like to start my spiral path of inquiry, or my spiral path of scientific thinking or scientific investigation, anything, is about asking questions, is about asking statements, asking questions that, and talking about, okay, what is this? How does this happen? And then running it. So I create a list of questions, that is the water hot, or is the water cold, or is it water droplets are outside? Anything that you want to ask, they are the questions you ask. The second step, once you're done with the question, is to investigate each question. So you asked a question, okay, is it warm or cold? How do you investigate? You have a tool. What kind of tool? You can check with the thermometer, or you can just check the room temperature if it's just kept at room temperature. What exactly are we talking about over there? Now, That is investigation. The next point is to create. Once you have asked, once you have investigated, now we start creating hypotheses or we start creating our statement. I think the water is cold outside because maybe the air is kind of condensating. You know the concept of condensation right now. What if we were not aware about the condensation process earlier? So how do I start thinking about it? Maybe because the water inside was cold and that's why uh, there is cold, or somebody was holding the glass with a wet hand and that's why the droplets are there. Yes, Archana, air contains vapor, but imagine if you don't know about any such thing. You don't know air contains water. Just unlearn for a while. Just unlearn and behave like a kid who doesn't know anything, who doesn't know there are water droplets in air. They don't know there is any kind of condensation process, or they don't know anything about the temperature differences, and then start thinking about the investigation process. See everyone over here. What happens as teachers, because we have a lot of knowledge already, so we many times assume that our kids are aware about what we are discussing. However, they are clueless most of the times about the concepts we are about to discuss. So in the investigation process, the teacher has to remain quiet. The teacher has to try their level best to maintain their calm and not interfere in the process of students discovering an hypothesis. So that would be a great job to do. Now, once your students have created those hypotheses or they've created a complete kind of a statement, okay, this is why I think this is there, you allow a discussion. You allow a discussion in the peers, you allow a discussion in the group, and you allow everyone to talk about it. And further, once they have discussed, they will come with a statement where a lot of hypotheses will get cancelled. A lot of decisions will get cancelled. It is important that we cancel few hypotheses in the process. Only then the discussion is going somewhere. And then we again reflect on from where we start. Now, earlier when we used to discuss the scientific path of journey, there was no loop. It used to be a straight process where we're talking about we will reflect and we'll do. But I call it a loop for a specific reason because you should go back and get into the process of questioning once again. So now you have questioned, you've done the whole journey, and your hypothesis got cancelled or it's not matching. So it could have three versions. It could have the same statement, few parts are accepted and few are rejected. It could be completely accepted. It could be completely rejected also. Based on what stage your statements are, you have to decide if you want to enter back into the loop of inquiry or the spiral path of inquiry or not. So this is one thing which you can for sure take a screenshot of. I won't mind because that's important for you to remember while we talk about inquiry-based learning. Now, if you have understood this section, I would like to go ahead and talk more about things. This is a beautiful statement which I love. Just for your knowledge, if I have to give you some historical background, the concept of inquiry-based learning is not a new concept. It's almost 100 years old, given by John Dewey, who has done a lot of work in education section, and you must have read about him while you were pursuing your B.Ed or other stuff. So we do not learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience is a very strong statement. So if somebody, when we were young, our parents or the elders in our house, they used to say, I will talk in Hindi and say the statement specifically, कि ये बाल धूप में सफेद नहीं करे हैं. So they're not talking about aging as a process of their experience. They're talking about the experience which they've gained by reflecting a lot on that experience from multiple years. That same applies to the logic of science. If you are not reflecting on what you are learning, you will end up not at all learning anything new. You will continue doing the same mistake. And that's what exactly is a scientific process. So you have done one set, you stop, you discuss, you reflect, you think that am I in the right direction? You change your direction also, you even leave the project and start over again. That's how we continue going with it. So we have more people entering in. Ankita, we have Gagan, and we have Roshan was kind of, complimenting my thought over here. So yeah, welcome everyone. We'll continue, and those who have missed certain sections can go and watch the videos later on the channel. We'll go ahead further from here. Now, when we talk about this particular section, there's a particular balance between inquiry, which is directed and emergent. That's important. uh, when you will start taking inquiry-based lessons, the temptation of being a teacher is like, let me tell you, you will feel again and again, no, no, don't like do like this, do like this. And you want to direct them most of the times. However, when you go into that approach, you kind of miss on letting them explore their own thoughts. So the correct way is you don't indulge in that stage. You just kind of control your emotions as a teacher and you let your kids grow and explore into that method. So it is directed and emergent. But if you leave them loose completely, then it's a ruckus because they don't know what to do. They don't know what kind of questions to discuss. They don't know how to build an hypothesis. So while we finish this journey today, I have kept a particular section specifically for all of you that which is more about role of a teacher in inquiry-based learning. I get this as a repetitive feedback that, ma'am, uh, that inquiry-based learning does not work. It does not work in the lesson planning. I personally feel it's more about the execution and we can learn how to do it. We all have to learn that. Even I used to face that challenge in the beginning. So going further from here, for instance, this is a very particular statement. Now, if you see carefully, does this water have the same shape if the temperature is different? This is just see the level of the question is so interesting. Now you may feel that what kind of question it is, but can you tell me that how this question becomes interesting? What thought of learning is it conflicting with that we teach our students? Yeah, Ghazal, we will be talking about a lot of tips on inquiry-based learning. Okay, but before we go there, I want you to tell me there is a teaching thought, there's a teaching concept which kind of conflicts somewhere with this, experiment and why it is important. Reflection, just think, not reflection, just think at a grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 level, depending on temperature and volume. So you're very nearby, Shweta. I just want to talk about very small kids. Yeah, 1 to 5 grades kids. So we have particle model. Okay. Now, this question, like if I ask you as a teacher, states of matter, Usha, very much nearby. You are in what I'm asking. Reference to molecules, yes, Aparna. We keep on teaching our kids a very interesting thing that, yes, sweetie, you have almost reached what I was asking. Good. So what I was about to say was, we keep on teaching our kids the statement, as temperature increases, the molecules start expanding and the molecule starts separating and the distance starts increasing. Now, one place you are telling them as the molecular distance will increase because the temperature is increasing. Then I asked them basic question, does water have the same shape if the temperature is different? Looking at the images. This water has the same shape. Now all of your hypothesis is changing. I'm not going to tell you the answer. You can go back, Google, and maybe take this question with your children. But as a teacher over here, I'm going to put you into a phase of inquiry-based learning. You have to inquire and then come back. So we are getting a lot of statements now. So while we are talking about inquiry-based learning, Gagan, let's assume that we have not even taught the concept of density till now. I love talking about concepts when we are talking about the bigger concept for younger grades and then trying to elaborate on the same concept. That will become very deep for them if density comes into picture. But yes, now let's consider in a way. So this is a statement. I'm going to chat. So how do I begin? I teach a concept. Okay, that this is states of matter and the shape changes and it starts expanding. The molecules start expanding as we're increasing the temperature. And suddenly, all of a sudden, I am like, okay, tell me one thing. If I keep this picture, is the shape same? Yeah, so Chetma is also giving me an answer. I'm not going to tell whose answer is correct one, but yes, this is a question we can think about. So when we talk about inquiry-based learning, the problem statements from you as a teacher becomes extremely important. If you don't bring up exciting problem statements, it won't work. So how do you create that curiosity and the factor of, I want to try that? You bring a statement and then you bring a conflicting statement in front of them. And then you tell them, okay, this concept says this, but what if we do like this? What will happen? And then automatically the kids are interested into the classroom. Yes, and Jayanta, you don't want to come to the correct statement only. We are talking about exploration and we will let them come to the correct statement instead. So that's how we can engage and bring our kids to the inquiry-based learning. We'll go further from there, over there, and you can think about. Now, similarly, when we are talking about the same thing, we're talking about inquiry, and then I ask them, okay, now just look at the various places in the word map. This is me adding a bit of a geography into a science classroom, making it interdisciplinary, and ask them, okay, I want you to look at the precipitation and temperature difference. So, is precipitation and temperature kind of connected with each other? And if you want to talk about it, just don't look at the place where you're living in. I want you to find at least 8 to 10 places, randomly pick up 8 to 10 cities in the world, and then compare their precipitation and temperature, and then bring an hypothesis. What do you understand? Now, this is a completely open ended question where I ask them, okay, I randomly want you to pick up and bring your hypothesis. Is precipitation and temperature connected with each other or not? Now, okay. I like what Hasmukh has written. It's about generating queries that make the child rethink on the knowledge and they have regarding a previous topic. Yes, very much near to Hasmukh, what I want to achieve by end of the session. So I think I'm going in the right direction by explaining this topic to all of you. Now, while we are talking about it, so when I say inquiry in the word or precipitation and temperature, this is the kind of cross thing that I'm trying to achieve. There's one big, very big disadvantage that you have in inquiry-based learning methodology. It is mostly open-ended. So it's very difficult to assess your students on an inquiry-based learning plan. But it has a lot of advantages which are not visible in terms of the scientific hat they're going to wear pretty soon. And it completely resonates with your new NEP changes and what the NCERT curriculum is kind of promoting these days. But there is a disadvantage that you will end up with a lot of open-ended questions coming up. Now we'll go further from here and see further. When we talk about inquiry-based learning, I always mention about 4 pillars of inquiry-based learning. They are the four core pillars which I would like to relate with all of you. Now, the first one is about constructive learning. And just before I go further, I hope I'm slow today. In the last 2 sessions, I'm getting like you are fast. So just tell me if I'm at the right pace today or not. Thank you. Okay, good. Because I have to control myself in my speech many times. Thank you. Okay. Now we'll go with the 4 pillars of inquiry-based learning. So the first one is constructive learning, which talks about build knowledge through exploration and curiosity. If you've gone through the NEP documentation, it talks about constructivism a lot. And I'm going to relate slightly that theory with this particular topic to develop the understanding for all of you. So we have to understand certain theories over here in order to understand it. Let me take you there. So the first one, when we talk about in the constructive learning or the constructivism process that kind of ultimately boils down to. Now, I want you to understand 2 theories and understand a comparison. So you have to pay concentration here. Otherwise, you will not be in a position to relate the 2 slides that I'm going to show you. So the first one is a transmission theory. Now, this is my favorite one. It says a basic statement that there is a teacher's head and then there is a learner's head. So this theory says that a teacher's head before a session, before going into the classroom, like I'm your teacher right now, supposedly, I'm your teacher right now. So I'm coming with a lot of things in my mind that this is what I'm going to, provide in my webinar, the types of inquiry-based learning, some hypotheses and various stuff that I've brought right now on my presentation. And I'm assuming, and that's an assumption, that the learner sitting in front of me is sitting like this with a blank slate, like a blank slate in front of me. And what I'm trying to achieve right now is that after learning, my learner will look something like this. Whatever is there in my mind, whatever is there in my mind will be transmitted to the learner's mind. That is an assumption. Okay, so that is an assumption. Now, This is transmission theory. Now, I will come to the part what Gagan and Riswana are talking about, but that's in the next slide. So, this is what a transmission theory talks about. However, there is another theory, which is much more important for me, which is a constructivist theory. This constructivist theory says that this is a teacher's head, which is full of knowledge. However, Gagan, as you were saying correctly, the learner's head is never empty. The learner's head is never empty. You are never in a position to have a kind of an empty head when you're going and teaching. And I earlier, when I was young now, so I used to hear the statements, even our teachers used to say, when you were pretty young, if you have to learn something, unlearn yourself and then come and then only you can learn. You cannot learn without unlearning. And that was a very interesting concept. And my mother used to say that, भरे हुए घड़े में कुछ और नहीं जाएगा, and you have to just make yourself empty in front of a guru and then come back. And I used to appreciate their theory and saying, no, I have to listen to my teacher with all that thing. However, those were beautiful statements and beautiful phrases and beautiful kind of things which were created to explain a concept in a good way. However, this theory makes more sense to me now, which says that the learner head is never empty. And what a learner achieves when a teacher has taught is something like this. After learning, learner is carrying some kind of knowledge. You can see there's some kind of knowledge which is there in a learner's mind. But after learning, learner's brain somehow looks something like this. Can somebody help me what has happened in the third image? This one, which I'm going to bring on my screen just now. The image below, what kind of change happened? Misunderstand. Learners had always reflects and connects with real life and then answers question. Okay. Increase of knowledge, incomplete transmission. Both of you are correct actually. Roshni and Krishnaveni. Doubts, more organized direction of their knowledge, a spark of knowledge, understanding. A learner starts loving the concept, organization, new ideas. No, I'm looking at, okay, Hasmukh always gets me some interesting answer. The learner is trying to reconstruct the knowledge they have with the knowledge provided by the teacher. Very much near Hasmukh to the answer that I want to give, or the learner's brain is trying to reconstruct that knowledge. Okay, understanding is better, misconceptions are clear. So I would say all your answers are the correct answers. There is no single statement that you can kind of give. It's almost like Mona Lisa. Everyone is trying to figure out that where is the smile going or what direction she is looking at. But let's talk about it. Now, before learning, there was some concept. If you understand, our complete curriculum is a spiral curriculum. So there is a horizontal succession of ideas and there's a vertical. Now, when I say vertical, so you have studying the same topic in grade 1 and then grade 2 and grade 3 and grade 4, some bit of it, not exactly the same. In the same way, when you create your lesson plans for the year, you create it in a horizontal succession also. That first I have to take this topic, understand, and then I will go to the next one, then to the next one, then to the next one. So you're creating a series of chapters in a way or lesson planning in that way. That's how we all create, but it's a spiral succession that we say. Now, the student is already aware about few topics from one place or the other. You're talking about submarine. Maybe they have seen a news about submarine, but you feel that you're talking about for the first time. For instance, for me, submarine as a concept came only when I was in school. For the first time in classroom, I believe grade 9. However, my son could talk about submarine when he was in grade 1 because he has already seen a lot of cartoons about it and he loves to just watch this series on Discovery about machines. So knowledge can be from anywhere. And then maybe a concept the teacher is about to teach where the knowledge is incomplete, which I've marked green. So when the teacher starts teaching, the student picks up their own ideas and kind of moves them around the teacher's idea and they try to structure it in a better way. Now, this is known as constructivism. Now, during that constructivism approach, they have their own personal factor. We all understand things in our own way and in our own structural manner, which is very much important to the concept of constructivism. There's an important statement in the next slide, which is very much close to my heart. And I think this is one statement each one of you should actually write on a piece of paper and stick to your walls of your house, of your, I don't know if your house you want to carry that, but obviously your classrooms and maybe staff rooms. specifically, which says in a very beautiful statement. I want you to read the one I've written below. The most important single factor influencing learning is what the learner already knows. What the learner already knows is the most important part. We keep on focusing about what the learner is not knowing. And that changes the complete proposition of how we are teaching. So constructivism tries to figure out मेरे बच्चे को कितना आता है, इसको कितना नहीं आता है, how much is he aware, how much he knows about, what are the concepts, are his strength area, and where we can actually go around it. This is my favorite liner from all the kind of liners or statements I keep on sharing with people. So I would like you to just keep this statement in your mind or your hearts, whatever. Now, while we are creating a lesson plan, and you are also creating a lesson plan for inquiry-based learning, you can integrate some parts of constructivism about it. Very simple. For instance, it says you set the scene. So you create an environment that, okay, fine, today we are having that inquiry-based learning or the investigation studies. You talk about some existing ideas that they have in their mind, if you want to talk about slightly. And then it's about restructuring ideas and then applying ideas. Now, this particular phase will come when the inquiry-based learning is done. There are a lot of times we can integrate two different approaches, but in a very healthy manner. But I wanted you to understand that how that construction of idea will actually develop. I hope it makes sense. And I can read, I think everyone is, I think I like this part, Bhavna. The happiness and content feeding in the learner on learning and understanding the concept is the hard part. Yes, you can just, kind of make a lot of statements out of it. We'll go further and talk about the next pillar we were talking about. And the next one says about student center, which says that the learner in control of the learning journey. Now, this is again a very interesting part. I meet all the teachers and they say that, no, we just let our students be. So let's see if you are already doing it. Then there is a formula on the next screen, and you can tell me what that formula says. So I have something for you. There is a formula, or there is a kind of a shortcut I've created to say the statement which says STT is greater than TTT. Maybe if any one of you have attended any of my physical workshop, then maybe you know this statement. Anyone? Oh, Swati. I'm doubtful if Swati was part of any of the sessions. Okay. So there comes, I think Swati is Swati is saying I was. Okay. So you I just picked up the wrong place. I thought I was doing it for the first time in an online session. But there are some repeated people in the session. Happy to meet you, Swati. I don't know which place I met you, but good to see you. Okay, so we say that student talk time is greater than teacher talk time. That's my favorite statement, which says student talk time is greater than teacher talk time. And then we say this is a student-centered classroom. So when we are talking about a student-centered classroom, we are talking about or student-centered learning. Your student talk time should be greater than teacher talk time. Now, many times, I feel when teachers come to me, ma'am, हम तो class में activity कराते हैं, शोर होता है और वहाँ पे coordinator ma'am आ जाते हैं. And this is a basic problem. I'm so sorry for all coordinators who are sitting in the room with me. But this is a basic problem which teachers face. That as soon as there is a noise, there will be a discipline in charge who will come and say, Arey, your class is making so much noise. Now, that is genuine on the school part also, because, you could have people from outside anytime, maybe people coming for admission and they're wondering, the school kids are not here. Unless you have that aura and you can explain that part, it's there. Now, I would like to explain the statement in two words. Noise is a different thing, but what you want is constructive noises in your classroom. Please lock this word for me with yourself. I want you to carry certain keywords with you when you leave me today. And the word is constructive noises. Your discussion, it should be constructive noises. It should look like they are part of a big conference and people are talking there and they're actually doing some research work. And if your classroom has constructive noises, then nobody can question it. Nobody can question it. And that culture starts developing in the school. And I think it's more like a school culture that you start talking about, that we need more discussions in the So that's the second important area that I wanted to emphasize in this session. Now let's go, yeah, where every child is heard, like interactive discussion. Chandra, yes, I would say all of your statements are pretty right. Rubina, yes. Basically, STT is also the golden rule for an active classroom. So somebody says that I am into the active teaching process, and I just kind of smile. What happens? There is a kind of, see, we all grow in our journey of learning. I'm fortunate that I get to meet so many of you from different places that I learn a lot. Like today, reading all your messages, I am learning a lot. So my consumption of learning is slightly higher in terms of interactions that I have with a lot of teachers and understanding their problems. But then when somebody says, I've seen this statement happening, that I asked them that how do you consider an active learning class? So say we make sure that we're asking questions to students again and again. And that makes sure that engagement is there. But that again increases the active time of teachers and reduces the active time of students. So we have to uh, promote more of, yes, Rubina, the flipped classroom culture in the class. Good. Let's go further and talk about the third one. Now, I believe you all are agreeing that inquiry-based learning promotes what we call as collaborative learning. This is one area where a lot of peer-to-peer collaboration happens because you don't want students to run investigations alone. Trust me, if they're running an investigation alone, it would be fun at all. Even if you're giving them as homework, just ask them to make Google Sheets and write all their answers and queries in one sheet because you don't want to, it could be your school guidelines. You don't want them to connect online on any other platform and create a mess or whatever. What is your guideline? So you can ask them to use a common Google Sheet where they can fill in their queries or statements and each of one of them can discuss or create common boards where they can chat around. But kids are smart these days. Like my son, when he has activities, they create all these groups and then start working on it. But yes, peer-to-peer is the most important part on inquiry-based learning. Please don't remove it. I feel that is one of the most important part. Ghazal, I wouldn't be in a position to talk about flipped classroom, but then you kind of exchange roles and students own the classroom is a flipped classroom, but it's much more than that. But just for a short briefing, we can have flipped classroom sessions some other day. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the final one in this section, which is critical thinking. Now, critical thinking, for those who don't know, HOTS means high order thinking skills. This is more of that I have picked up from the section of Bloom's taxonomy, which basically talks about that the higher order, the top three sections in the pyramid are more into the HOT section. So only that section I picked up over there. Now, let me just introduce you some questions in talking about. Now, just give me one critical thinking question. What if you can give me one critical thinking question? And don't chat GPT and Google this question. Give me a question right away. I'm surprised my teachers are not giving me questions. What type? Why is the sun yellow? Yes, Kim King, nice one. Kim Kim, I believe you are somewhere. I think you wrote your place. Why leaves are green in color? Good. Why should we keep our house clean? Nice one. Why do animals have run fast in the forest? Good one. I think it's for life skill also. What happens if there is no water when you wake up? Okay. So you're giving me almost case studies now. Why is the water getting scarce? Why is the sky blue? Okay, why birds can fly and not humans? I love this statement. I always put it as one of my questions. 2 years old, he asked me why can't chicken grow on trees? My goodness, Aisha, your son is a genius. What is Earth's temperature rises by 3 degrees Celsius? Okay, I think I don't know why do I conduct these sessions when I interact with all of you and I'm like speechless that I want to meet you in person already. Now, why does water look blue? And a lot of why water is odorless. I think like these days we are not getting that odorless water. I don't know, but yeah, that is the true statement. Why does the owl sleep in daytime? I think these are all good questions. So thank God you're asking me, you're saying these questions because every time I say critical thinking, and then I get all those aptitude questions pouring in on my screen or on the classrooms where I'm conducting, having these discussions. So I just kind of get, annoyed when I get all those only aptitude question. I'm like, Ari, sir, isme critical thinking, and there's a lot of critical thinking in other areas also, and that's scientific. That's beautiful. So we have, why do we feel cold? This is such a nice question. Why do we feel cold? Why only me always? Okay, this is more emotional question. Let's go further and let me show you certain questions that I've kept for you. I think they're very basic one. When we look through a telescope at stars and other things in space, we are seeing light from many years ago. Is it worth observing space if we're actually observing what it may look like many years ago? So we always say that what we see from a telescope is basically the light reflecting back into our eyes. Now, this is one question which is again making you think. Look at the other question. If energy can't be created or destroyed, why is there an energy crisis? Again, something to think. Then further, can you think of anything that is not made of atoms? Now, these are the areas we and why can't we see here? Yes, Shrutika. So these are the areas where kind of push your children to an extent in which they can develop that inquiry-based learning. So that's where I wanted to talk to you when I was talking about the foundation of IBL. Now, going further from here, let me show you something, which is inquiry-based learning. It's somewhere in between collaboration, student-centeredness, critical thinking, and this constructivist theory. It is somewhere in between. It is an amalgam of everything. So if you say I'm just picking upon one thing and then I'm leaving on the other one, that won't work well. So while you are creating your lesson plans or you're creating your lesson journey with your students, you have to see that all these factors are there. It has to be a group activity. It has to be all about children. It has to be critical thinking. It has to be deconstructing the ideas from their previous knowledge. You cannot give them something which is completely out of the blue. You will not give them a topic which they have never ever heard about or they're not even connected with. So I want to start talking about, for instance, metaphysics and tell them, okay, I want you to do a project on metaphysics and get back to me. No, that won't work because you need some connectivity into the thought process of the kids while you are actually posing these questions. So let's go further from there and quickly talk to certain steps because I have to show you something also. The volume what is increasing. Okay. Now, learning to inquiry can be easy. The provocations create enthusiasm. Now, observation help us to collect data and asking questions and the right tools. There's a word right tool. Now, I want you to understand only this section. I don't think so. I have to explain other things. But there is curiosity. There are theories. We've already spoken about the constructivist theory. We're talking about data management, but the important part is tools. In young grades, basically, you can introduce them to scientific tools or basic tools with the help of inquiry-based learning. So what will happen, what is the thing that they will not understand that they have to do or they can use is if I have to find a solution to this problem, there is a tool for it. So if I have to see that this how small it is, there's a lens to it. So they don't know about it. So as teachers, it's important that you introduce them to the right kind of tools. For instance, what are the lenses, what are the measuring tools, or how you can actually record your data. Or somebody I don't know if you people are talking to me or you're talking to each other because yeah, how do you even expect children to learn everything in 1 year? No, Gagan, they won't learn anything in 1 year. It's a journey. It's a journey over there. Now, when we talk about this question, so the important part is we start discussing about the tools, that what kind of tools they can actually utilize. So when we talk about tools, there could be a lot of things that you can keep on doing as activities. I've created, for instance, certain things. Now, these activities are completely age driven. Certain kids won't need it and certain kids won't need it over there. Now, let's start talking about. Give me a second, everyone. Yeah. So, for instance, this is more like a match the following activity, which is there, which you are trying to tell them, okay, what tool are we talking about? The identification of the right tool. For us, it's so easy to remember it's a thermometer, but for them, they will take some time to tell the difference between a conical flask or a round flask and a normal beaker and what measurement tool that they should be using. They could be measuring small bit of quantity in a big beaker. So you have to keep on introducing to the tools that they will be using. Further, you can also talk about the meanings and measure. I've just kept certain activities for your reference in which various tools can be applied. I will skip on this part. For instance, temperature and various things. And then important is this section. It is about what is the tool and what is the purpose it's used for. And you are actually naming them and you are correcting them. Tools is an important part. In the complete inquiry-based learning process, the only section where I felt that most of us miss is that we don't introduce our students to tools. So what you can do is when you're creating a lesson plan, you can actually tell them or hint them certain tools that, okay, you can use these tools and these use tools can help you out in figuring out this challenge areas. So the tools list can be given a separately. In every section or activity, you can introduce some new tools and give them a hands-on experience on using those tools. So tools training can happen before you allow them to start working on it, because that will need some teacher hands over there. This is also another good statement. Give the pupil something to do, not something to learn, and doing is of such a nature as to demand thinking. Learning naturally results. I think we all will agree to it. So, Gagan, you have a statement on screen which says that how do you expect everything? See, I don't expect anyone to learn, but yes, there is a rule. But if you would have gone through the new NCF curriculum, it is not talking about finishing all the competency in one stage. So there are stages in which students can attain something in a particular stage and not just 1 year. So maybe that is the new change which will help us, all of us out, which is coming up. And if you've already applied in your schools. Now, going further from here, will be your role as a teacher in this complete journey when we talk about it? If we talk about this journey, I have written certain questions that you as a teacher need to pose. Maybe you can take screenshot. These are just samples of questions. You have to create your own inventory. Now you can question me and argue with me that, ma'am, why do we need a list of questions? See, I will give you an idea. For instance, I am a senior director in a company, and I have to take a lot of interviews at times at various positions and various roles. But I always create set of questions because I have just 30 minutes, and in order to get the right information out of a different role, I need to ask the right question. And I have to do my homework before I start with an interview also, which is to prepare a list of the right questions which I should be posing at that time. So I believe the right answer is not that important, but right question is more important to kind of inculcate that learning journey in our kids. So I have kept certain questions for all of you, for just to give you an idea. For instance, when you're talking about curiosity, what do you wonder about this? What questions do you have? Can you predict what might happen if? Now, are you curious about finding out more? Promoting observation, what do you notice about? So we are just posing that question. Let's observe what happens when. Why do you think that happened? What can you learn from this observation? They're very simple statements, but they have great impact on a student's learning journey. Similarly, hypothesis. What is your hypothesis or best guess? Now, over here with the term hypothesis, we have kept the term best guess to make them understand that hypothesis is not a final theorem or kind of a statement which will not change. It is basically a guess that you're giving. Based on what you think, what do you think will happen? So this is more like putting them to the next stage of testing. Let's try it and see what we discover. What different methods could be used to investigate? It is more about pushing them towards the tools, that we want them to use more of tools and start working with the tools and kind of validating what statements they have made. We can go further there. Yes, maybe 100% learning by doing is a statement for sure. Supporting evidence, what conclusions can we draw from our findings? How can our evidence support our conclusion? Can we trust a statement? Now, further, what did we learn from this inquiry? So these are more like questions, easily and asked question. Nishant says, give the knowledge and practical way to give real life example. Yes, Nishant, that's very much true. We have to give practical examples. But I am sticking myself to the topic of inquiry-based learning right now, which talks about that we have to ask questions in order to, so if we are on the stage of asking, discussing, so in that particular stage, without getting involved in a child's research process or investigation, how you can actually prompt that they start thinking in that direction is one important part, and that role we are talking about. In math, it doesn't work. I'm not sure if I have applied much there. Okay, so I'm going to ignore a few things. And then there are some more questions. I'm not going to say all of them. Maybe you can just do a quick read. What resources could you use to learn more about this? Or let's share our finding and see if we can combine our ideas. Now that can be an interesting statement for us to give to our children. Then So while we are talking about a lot of teacher inquiry, there is also a type of student inquiry or the student questions which will be there and how you can set up the whole structure. Now, there is something interesting here, which is about there are four set types of student inquiries or inquiry-based learning mechanisms. One is structured inquiry, then controlled, then guided, and then free. Now, structure is when the whole class is engaged in the inquiry together with the teacher to control on the inquiry process. So the whole class is participating. Now, in the control one, we are actually making sure that we are part of it. And then the guided one where the teacher gives them a step-by-step approach. And last, the free one, which they are free to do anything and they are being part of it. Now, the free one is a risky affair. So and the guided one looks easy to maintain on the class structure. I always say that begin from the guided one and then enter to the free zone. And there's a beautiful picture that I show also on internet. Then also I can actually show you this one. Now, carefully look at the picture before passing any statement. Now, if you see over here, the structured inquiry talks about, if you look at this, I'm so sorry, over here. Students follow the lead of the teacher as the entire class engages in one inquiry together. So the teacher is leading this process. A country inquiry, teacher chooses the topic and identify the resource student will use to answer the question. So the resources have been identified by the teacher, they are predefined. Now, guided one, the teacher is not part of the inquiry process. You see over here, the guided one, the teacher is outside the whole inquiry journey. Teacher chooses the topic and student design product or solution. And finally, free inquiry, where student chooses their topic without reference to any prescribed outcome. You are not talking about any kind of prescribed outcome. You are just talking about, you are completely out of the journey. My favorite are these two one because I am not involved as a teacher into the journey. Because if you are involved, whatever you may say, you will end up guiding them personally. So that's what we don't want. This picture kind of explains everything. Maybe it's from internet. Credit to @Trev McKesson. I will not take credit of it. Now, okay, Swati is asking me that could I elaborate with an example? I have to think deep in getting an example, Swati, but let me just think through. For instance, see, it's more about, if I have to tell the whole difference, it's more about, see, all the four approaches are correct, if I be honest. It's not that they are not incorrect. You can follow any one of them based on your, selection. The only difference is in guided and free, your student gain confidence. Why? It's more about that trust factor which student has that my teacher believes that I can do it by myself. So if I have to explain it further, it's more about instruction and control. Like when you learn bicycle for the first time, somebody is holding your bicycle and then helping you out to move. So that is more of structure and control. But the ultimate teaching is you will learn to cycle. But if you have to be independent, you have to enter into the zone of guided and free, where you are actually leaving them free. So that's how it is more related. I hope it made some sense to you. Now, I would like to show you one teacher note or lesson plan, which I actually have downloaded from the internet. There are some free resources from this website, which you can use. Now, let me just show it to you before we end this session. And I think I just still have 4 minutes. I think I need 4 minutes only. Let me just show it to you. Okay, so this is one of the Inquiry-Based Learning Institute. They had certain lesson plans, which I like. They also have this acronym they have kind of described. But let me show you what I exactly want to show you. Now, this lesson plan is so clear in terms of objectives, educational standards, material, vocabulary. And then they have certain kind of extra notes for students to kind of research or look at the things. Now, if you see, they have already cleared, okay, what is the objective and what are the materials which are needed and the kind of vocabulary which is there. For example, comparative question, prediction is a word which students may not be aware about. And then there are some basic terms like sunlight, shadow. But in the first stages, if it's K to 5, pre to K, if this lesson plan is pre to K, the students will not be aware about the word shadow also. So it becomes much more interesting in that stage. I brought a very young grade section over here. If you see over here, we have this day-wise bifurcation that you give them an option of investigating surroundings and you allow them to examine results. You allow them to make predictions, then analyze results, investigate and ask questions. So you let them do things by themselves and you let this thing happen over across. They have given us some reference images also, which are here. Let me just show them to you. Now look over here. The role of teacher and the investigate your surroundings. Now this is, we are talking about young grades K to 5. The student and the teacher are doing this. Narrow your focus. Both of them are doing it. Ask comparative question. Over here, both the involvement. Uncover your prediction and initiate an action plan. Only students are doing it. And finally, research. Both of them get involved. So this is more like the discussion. And then we have these beautiful ways to actually elaborate and help out kids in samples. So this is known as an investigation book, which students can draw shadows. They can talk about temperature, maybe mark it. They can make shadows where the shadow is, and that's all. So this is more like a lesson plan, which I actually liked. I thought I would share with all of you to showcase slightly about how this can be created. So I believe we are done with the discussion that we were having. And I would love to thank all of you